We're good.
We're on?
Mm-hmm.
We are?
We're
That's
here.
good. Well, welcome to the virtual Preds preview party. I'm Paul McCann, joined by Cara Hammer. We are really excited at this whole thing presented by Fifth Third Bank. We're happy to be here at Bridgestone Arena. Cara, we are almost back to hockey.
We are. Hockey is starting today. I am so excited. We're in our own bubble. We're in our own empty arena here inside of Bridgestone, but it feels so good to be back.
It's exciting. We know that coming up in just about 3 hours, the Predators and the Stars and the Showcase exhibition game coming up. We're very, very excited about it. And Cara, I want to ask you a couple of questions on this because let's talk about how the Predators take this momentum that they had at the end of the season. They really seem to be putting it together right before the pause 142 days ago, but who was counting? But anyway, how do they bring that forward? What are you expecting to see out of this team?
Well, I think it was really good for the Preds to have the opportunity to have some time under Coach Hines and have a training camp. That was something that they didn't really have when Coach Hines came in. But, Paul, I have to say the one thing I really, really liked before the pause was how the defensemen had stepped up under Coach Hines. I think before, under Coach Laviolette, they were really playing a man-to-man type style. And under Coach Hines, you saw them move into that zone, and the defensive presence in front of the net was so much better. The guys were so much better at being able to clear the puck out and create some of those less than high-scoring chances.
Mm-hmm.
And so talking about defensemen, we also have to plug in Yossi for Norris.
Absolutely. Well, is there any other choice? I don't think so.
There is no other choice. In the words of our guy, Chris Mason, he is the best player in the world of bringing the puck up the ice. So I'm excited about the defensemen, but I think the one thing I'm looking forward to today is what's going to happen with the goalies?
Well, I mean, obviously, that's the big question among Pred Nation right now.
Yeah.
Where does the goalies end up? Is it Rinne? Is it Saros? I mean, this is a good problem to have. I mean, I think we're starting to see the transition between these two goaltenders. But, Cara, I mean, the interesting piece is I don't think one goaltender really stood head and shoulders above the other. And I think we've seen over the course of the last couple of years with Saros and Rinne being that combination that they like pushing each other.
They're like the 1-2 punch, except for both guys are number one. I mean, throughout stretches of the season, at points, Pekka and UC were both the number one goalie. It was a really hot end of the what are we going to call the end of the season? It wasn't the end of the season. It was
pre-pause?
The pre-pause, the pre-COVID break. I don't know. We're going to have to come up with a term for this. But in those final 3 games, before the season came to a halt, UC was the guy in net, 3 straight wins, and 2 of those were shutouts.
Well, and you look at that, and especially 2 of those were shutouts against tonight's opponent, the Dallas Stars. And you have to give the NHL credit. They've done a heck of a job on this. And not only that, the exhibition games really feature, I mean, we've seen Philly play Pittsburgh. We've seen the 2 New York teams go at each other. And now we see one of the budding new rivalries in the National Hockey League, Dallas and Nashville today.
I like it because I think it brings the competition out early. I think I was just speaking with J-P Dumont, who we're going to see coming up here in a moment, but he said that you need these type of games because if the guys were going up against a team that wasn't so much a rivalry, there might not be that added oomph, and I think we're going to see a lot of physicality against Dallas.
I think we've already seen that in some of the exhibition games already, and you look at the history just in the past year with this Dallas Stars team, knocking the Preds out last year.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, the Winter Classic not exactly turning out the way we wanted, but then turning around and watching UC Saros absolutely dominate this team over a 2-game period right before the pause. This is one of those rivalries that you see that when the Central Division was put together, you kind of saw kind of bubbling under. And now that both teams are contenders, you're really seeing this rivalry start to really blossom.
And even though this is just an exhibition game, I mean, I'm hoping that all of that rivalry is there. I hope it's just total domination.
Well, and again, this is what's interesting is that these exhibition games have turned into kind of I've seen them as more like November regular season hockey. They aren't like a regular preseason game. So when you look at this, at both of these teams, there are some questions to answer. I mean, obviously we talked about the goaltenders. You talked a little bit about the blue line, but what is that third pairing going to look like? Before the break, Corbinian Holzer and Jared Tenorti made a real case that was their role. You've seen Dante Fabro grow in his rookie season, and how does last year's playoff experience pay off for him this year? The questions just continue to come in, and they're going to start to be answered in just a few hours.
I think I agree with that, Paul. And I think what we're really going to see, though, is even though they're going up against Dallas in the exhibition game, we're going to see a lot more of that against Arizona, because that's the real test, that qualifying round. But I love Holzer. I love Tenorti. I think it was great to have two big physical defensemen come in, and I think that's an added value for the Predators.
Well, and I think we've seen that over and over when it comes to the playoffs. Speed is important, and we've talked about that, but I think that physicality is also big. If you look back, and one of the things we had during this pause was to be able to look at these Golden Classic games, to be able to look at the 2017 run, and you saw the physicality of this team, especially from the Jofa line.
Yeah.
And now that the Jofa line's been reunited and it feels so good, we'll see how that goes tonight. But you know what? I think it'd be a good idea to take a look back at the 2019-20 regular season, and the teams that they are today. Let's take a look at some video.
Shutout of the season for UC Saros, and he had gritty play in front of him. Nashville rides great special teams and snaps the 3-game losing streak. The theme all night was Nashville strong and a good feeling here at Bridgestone Arena. Back-to-back shutouts! UC Saros against the Dallas Stars!
And UC Saros was just out of this world, incredible. And they get those 2 points. What an inspirational effort by the Nashville Predators.
Nashville wins 2-0 and 1-0 on 3 power play goals, and they have swept the home and home. And Nashville will get their second consecutive road win, and they will grow their winning streak to 3 games as UC Saros closes the door.
2 huge points. The Preds again find a way, another 2 massive points in the bank.
Good stuff indeed here on the Nashville Predators preview party presented by Fifth Third Bank. And I am joined by Preds alum, an all-time favorite here in Smashville. We're glad to have him. And honestly, the guy that I love saying his name, I can't say it exactly like I do, but J-P Dumont joining us. J.P., we look at where the Preds were at the pause. They seem to just be getting it back together again. Take us inside the mind of a player. How do you get back that intensity, especially in such a rapid turnaround like the Predators have right now?
You know, it's new for everyone. That's the best thing about it, right? It's like every team, every player is in the same position. So it's definitely new. You know, maybe we talked about it a little with Cara earlier. Younger players, fresher legs, you know, may have a little advantage at the beginning, but like, you know, the veteran knows, been there before. You know, I mean, it's every year you hear the same thing when the Stanley Cup champion, right? They always like, oh, we had to go through adversity this year. But, you know, if that's not adversity, you know, I mean, like everybody should be ready to go here. You know, this game today, it's not exhibition. You can bet on that. The guys are ready to go. Coaching staff too, like, you know, I mean, like you said, they've been working on system, like, you know, the new system with Coach Hines, but still, there's so much to do here today, you know, that exhibition games, like, you know, playing time, you know, I mean, like, you don't want to go and try to make sure that, you know, then Rome and Yossi only play, like, you know, I mean, like 15 minutes to everybody. You got to have those guys ready to go because Sunday, you know, I mean, it's 3 games, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's not a best of 7 anymore. It's a best of 5. So the boys have to be ready to go, and it's going to be a great game today.
You know, JP, one of the things I think is going to be one of the real challenges about this, and in watching the exhibition games that have happened so far, the presentation is phenomenal, but the lack of fans being in the arena, you kind of had that experience in your last days in Buffalo. Things weren't exactly, they weren't exactly beating down the doors to get into, HSBC Arena at that point. What's the difference in a player's mind when it's just, there's no fans in there, there's no noise, there's no emotion to be able to tap into?
Well, it's going to be tough, but just a little correction here because I still have some Sabres fan here.
Yeah.
It was really when we have an ownership issue. It was not at the end.
I know.
At the end,
it
was
no,
great.
No. Great fans in
Great
Buffalo.
fans
Absolutely.
in Buffalo. But, okay. Yeah, it's going to be strange. Like I said, like, like when you play the game, like when you're on the ice and you're really doing your shift, you don't hear like people talking or noises. You just, it's loud. You're so focused on the game. But, when it's on the bench or like on TV timeouts or like I said, like, like it's a shift momentum as well. Like there's a few shifts that we've been stuck in our zone. And now, like I said, we have like one big shift, like, like a fourth liner goes on the ice, and big bangs and the crowd respond to it. It just give you a boost, right? Give you wings. Like I said earlier, it's like Red Bull, right? Like the fans can give you wings and that's going to be tough. But, like, everybody's on the same boat, so like it's not an advantage for any of the teams out there. So like, everybody has to be ready for it, and you got to get ready for that too, because now that I'm retired, I play men's league. Like I have no one watching me play. I'm not complaining.
Well, the interesting piece is you talked about younger players, fresher legs, but the other thing that I think that might be an interesting X factor in all of these playoffs are the fact that most every team is 100% healthy, and they're not coming in off the grind of an 82-game season. And I look at players like Victor Arvidsson, where I think that might be a real advantage for him.
Well, definitely. But like you said, it's going to be like this for every team, right? That's it's a plus or a minus if you look about it. Like when you play like against other team. But yes, our team is fresh right now. That we know of, obviously. But like. Everybody had that same break. That time change. If it would have happened like 25 years ago, that long break, I don't think the guys would have been ready to go in 3 weeks like right now. But this is like, the game change. It's faster, it's younger, so the guys are ready to go. And like I said, like, those young players with fresh legs will just get those veterans going.
So the Predators had some momentum, 3 straight wins before the pause. Is there a way to tap into that momentum after such a long break, or is that something that you forget about? It's gone. How do you move forward?
No, hockey players, man, it's all about confidence. Once you have it, like you want to keep it. And right now, like I said, like they went through a lot, with a new coach, new system, and like I said, like things like kind of rolling, before the pandemic, and you can see like, even the chemistry, there was some good chemistry coming. But, that break had to change, those lines. And, and as a coaching staff, not the coaching staff, you definitely want to make sure that, you try to go easy into it. So that's why I think we see like, Jofa line back together. You need those lines to get going right at the start. You don't have time to say, we have 6 exhibition games, so we can do some matchup and see. No, you got to get going right at the start. So, chemistry and confidence, it's huge. So, like, they're definitely going to use those 3 games before the break.
Yeah. The other interesting thing that you want to look at for something like this is the Predators are allowed to dress 2 extra players today. They're allowed to dress an extra forward. They're allowed to dress an extra defenseman. Different teams have taken different strategies on this. Coach Hines is going to use those extra players. I think especially from a defensive perspective, you've got your top 2 pair, but you've got some very, very good, very experienced players on the blue line that you can choose from out of that third D pairing. I mean, you look at Corbinian Holzer, Jared Tenorti, you look at Dan Hamhuis, Yannick Weber, all have quite a bit of experience in here. That, I think, is one of the things you're going to look at today to try and figure out who is that third D pair. And to your point, you don't have a lot of time to figure that out.
Yeah, you don't have a lot of time, and at the same time, you don't want to take ice away from, Yossi, Ellis, Ekholm, and Fabro, because you want those guys to be ready to go on Sunday. So it's definitely going to be, a good challenge for the coaches to figure it out, but that's definitely a good way. Like, I think that rule, like I said, like you mentioned earlier, the NHL is doing an unbelievable job to get hockey, in the bubble, everything, like, it looks great, and this rule for those exhibition game, I think it's great, for the coaches to just, try to figure out, like, a few last choices for a game on Sunday.
Well, JP, thanks so much for taking some time and joining us today on the virtual Preds preview party. And you know what? The bubble's going on in Predmonton now. See what I did there?
That was
in
nice.
Predmonton right now. I think we just got to change the name of the city. But we want to take a look now. We're going to take a look back at what's going on inside the bubble with our man inside the bubble, Brooks Bratton.
Hey there, Smashville. It's Brooks Bratton of NashvillePredators.com here in the secure zone, Edmonton, Alberta, the NHL bubble, here at the Predators team hotel, the JW Marriott. And I wanted to give you a behind-the-scenes look at a couple of elements that make this NHL hub city feel a little bit more like Smashville. The Predators occupy 2 floors as a team here at the JW Marriott, and before the guys even get on the elevator for the day, they've got some inspiration to help them get started. There are 6 teams that are staying here at the JW Marriott in Edmonton, and they all have their own dedicated meal room and meeting room. This is that space for the Preds, some logos over there on the wall, and then check it out, blue and gold lighting on the ceiling. They're small touches, but they're meaningful ones here in a place over 2,000 miles away from Smashville. And as each player returns back to their room, they're welcomed at the door by the Pred head. So even though we're here in the capital of Alberta, there are still plenty of reminders, from the signage in the hallway to the meal room to the billboard that's just down the street that displays the Win for Smashville logo. Yes, the billboard here in Edmonton. There are plenty of reminders of our team and our city here so far away from home. In the bubble, I'm Brooks Bratton.
Thanks, Brooks, for that great report on how things look inside the bubble. Back here with Cara Hammer on the virtual Preds preview presented by Fifth Third Bank. Cara, I asked JP about that. I'm curious what your thoughts are. How do you feel like the lack of fans in the arena are going to impact the games?
I've been curious about that, if it's going to be a mental standpoint. I was watching the Battle of Alberta, and, in the intermission, they were interviewing some of the players, and they said, yeah, it is different when you have a big hit or you score a goal and there's nobody cheering for you. But I talked with JP about, do you need that affirmation? Do you need a fan to cheer for you? And he said, no, when you're out there and you're skating, you're just skating. And I know that the guys actually went and watched some of the games yesterday in Edmonton just to get a feel of what it's like to play in front of 0 fans in front of the bubble. But we're here broadcasting with no fans. I mean, do you feel anything different?
A little bit, just a little bit. It's going to be interesting because we are doing some things to bring Smashville to Predmonton.
Yes.
And one of them, I recorded a couple of our big things. So, yes, you will hear there's 1 minute remaining in a period using a familiar voice. You know what? I also recorded a few other things, a few of the other traditions. You'll hear Fang Fingers. You'll hear a few other surprises in there as well. So we're going to do our best to bring some of Smashville to Edmonton to make sure that the boys know that we're behind them, that we're doing everything we can to push them right here in Music City. And Cara, I mean, the interesting piece about all of this is that it's brand new. I mean, you're looking at, you can look at how other leagues have come back. And you know what? I got to say it. The NHL has done one heck of a job in putting all of this together, making sure that the bubble's put together. Steve Mayer and his group, really, the look inside the arenas are absolutely beautiful. The additional signage, even the tarps over the seats kind of look good and really focus you on the ice. What are your thoughts about what you've seen on some of these exhibition games?
Well, first, when you said 1 minute remaining in the period, I had to say, thanks, Paul.
Exactly.
There we go. I like the way that everything looks. I think they've done a really, really good job of making it feel comfortable. The biggest thing for me, though, is the photos that they put in the players' hotel rooms when they got there. How cool is that? I think the guys were really excited for that. But I think just the setting that they have going up around the stands, you really don't notice. I've heard them plug in some crowd noise, but I know, Paul, that we have gotten some fan questions coming in from us.
Well,
so
let's answer them.
Take a moment to answer some of them.
Absolutely.
Thomas, behind the scenes, is sending me text messages on what people have been saying. So they want to know which fundamentals will be important for beating the Coyotes, because that's who we're playing in the qualifying round.
Well, and Pred Nation has a long memory. We certainly do remember, what happened way too many years ago, but Mike Smith is not their goaltender anymore, so that helps. But I think at this point, it becomes the Predators playing their game.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, if the Predators benefited from the pause. So did the Coyotes, because this is a team that started out like a house of fire. Come the turn of the year into 2020, that team was in first place in the Pacific, and then all of a sudden some injuries started kicking in. Some of the younger players started wearing down a little bit, and you saw them dropping. I mean, at this point, if the season had ended at the time it did, and we had a standard playoff series, they wouldn't even be in it. So they've got a second life when it comes to that. I think that's very, very dangerous. Now, because in some respects, Arizona can look at this and say, hey, we're playing with house money at this point. Let's just let it all hang out and let's go. Where the Predators have some pressure of expectation. They have some of that pressure of, you know what, we've got to, we were here in 2017. We were disappointed after the President's Cup in 2018. Last year going out in the first round. I think this team honestly has a little bit of a chip on its shoulder. And believe me, I think that's a good thing.
I also think it's a good thing that the Predators are not playing Arizona in Arizona. That's where they have struggled. So hopefully having a neutral site as in Edmonton will work in Nashville's favor.
I think so. But I mean, but you have to keep in mind, Arizona is a very disciplined hockey team.
Yes.
Rick Tocchet has done an excellent job in really putting in the systems that keep a discipline going. It's going to be that is going to be difficult. This is not going to be, at least in this observer's opinion, I don't think it's going to be a real high-scoring series, but this is a series that I think the Nashville Predators can and should win. And honestly, I think Arizona is going to be a tough out. They're not going to go down easily.
Well, we have a next question. Who is your team to watch in the East?
Wow. You know what? There's a couple of good teams I think you need to watch in the East. Watching Pittsburgh, unfortunately, and I'm sorry, guys, but Pittsburgh looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Now, they didn't play a really good hockey team. I don't think Montreal looked that good at all. I think the other team, and no, I'm not showing off my hometown here, and this will aggravate Sean Henry as well. I think the Philadelphia Flyers are a team that you need to look out for. It's a team that has finally found goaltending, and I'll tell you what, they didn't look like they missed a beat in their exhibition game. So I think those are two teams you want to keep a real close eye out on. But you know what? Don't fall to sleep on the New York Islanders either.
All right, well, we've done a lot of hockey talk, but now let's go to the flow. And we have a question about some of the hair that's come back. And people want to know, is Philip Forsberg's mustache the best in the game?
Ooh. You know what? It looks good. I mean, unfortunately, you look at some of the other stars with their mustaches. I love you, Connor McDavid. The mustache doesn't work. You got too much of a boyish face. But I think Philip Forsberg looks good when you start looking at that. When you get into the facial hair, I mean, however, the competition on this team is strong when it comes to facial hair, and that just starts with Ryan Ellis. I mean, that beard, you have to be scared of that beard.
Yeah.
You just have to.
Well, I love that, when he was here for training camp and he pulled up with the mustache, Hal Gill was broadcasting and calling it the lip sweater. And so, we're having a lot of nicknames coming out for Philip Forsberg. But I think when you rock a stash like that, it brings added confidence. And, I mean, Philip Forsberg, with all the confidence in the world right now, will be unstoppable. That
could be something that the rest of the NHL should be very, very afraid of. You know what? I know these guys are waiting for stuff.
Oh, yeah.
We've got stuff to give away.
Winners.
We have got winners coming on. Now, look, we've got a Roman Josi jersey, soon to be Norris Trophy winning Roman Josi jersey. And what else do we have here? Do we have that one? So do we have a winner?
Let me see. Let me
check the magic text.
We're waiting on a text.
Oh, we're waiting on it. Okay. So while we're waiting on that, let's talk a little bit about Roman Josi and the battle for the Norris Trophy. I know that we're slightly biased here. Mm-hmm. I get that. But I don't think there's been a clearer case made. I mean, you look at John Carlson, certainly has had a great first half of the season, but that's it. You've seen Roman Josi build from the beginning of the season. You have seen this man take this team on his back.
Yes.
Victor Hedman, half the year he was injured, for heaven's sakes. I'm sorry. I mean, I get it, and sometimes that can build some, but I'm going to look at this right now. Roman Josi absolutely is the Norris Trophy winner, whether it's announced in Vegas at the NHL Awards or not. To me, he's the best defenseman in the league.
I think you have to agree with that. And so many times, and we watch every Predators game, so we have seen him in and out. But like you said, so many times he has put this team on the back, especially earlier in the season where, you know, we had a little bit of struggle with some of the defensive play. Like I said before, Hines came in and they switched to that zone defense, but numerous times it was Roman Josi with the comeback goals, pushing the game up the ice.
And that's the thing, does it on a constant basis. So as we're waiting for our winner, do we have that from quite yet?
We
do have the winner.
The text has come in.
I love it. Okay, so let's open up the text
Okay.
and dramatically read the name of the winner of the Roman Josi jersey.
All right, Noah Glenn.
Noah Glenn, congratulations. You've just won a jersey of your captain, the captain, Roman Josi. You know what, guys? We're less than 2.5 hours away to Predators hockey at long last. We'd like to thank all of you for joining us. Cara, thanks so much for being here. We thank our guest, J.P. Dumont, for being here. We thank Fifth Third Bank for bringing this to you. And you know what? Make sure you tune in. 3 p.m. Fox Sports Tennessee. It's the Preds. It's the Dallas Stars. Predators hockey is back. Thanks so much for joining us, Pred Nation. You be good. Good night and good hockey.